All right.
You're recording now? Yes, it's recording now. Okay. So, the Hipster Racism article, like, my problem with it was I didn't completely understand how it tied into the theme of comedy and sexuality that we were going through today. I felt like it would have tied in better with the previous week, but also I like it a lot because it talked about something that I've been bringing up in all of my unit reflection essays, which is the fact that like these comedy shows think they're bringing to light some like big important scheme of how humans interact with each other, but really like in making fun of it, they're condoning the behavior. They're saying, yeah, this is how people act, go ahead, keep doing it. And like that's how it's often perceived. And so for that, like I feel like that was a big point or pretty much the entire point of the article. Like in these comedy shows, they think that they're bringing to light social issues, but a lot of people are just taking it as an excuse to continue inappropriate behavior.
Because the people on TV do it, that obviously means the real people do it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree too. That was a big thing in there. And like they talk about how in the gay witch hunt episode, Michael, like they kind of like they don't really point out as much, like they don't really point out when he's being like rude. They kind of just like accept that that's like who he is, you know, and they kind of just like ignore it even though it's like a really important deal, you know, like what you said. So like I think that's a lot with all the comedy episodes, kind of, some of them, but like they only really point out when he's being like very offensive, like sometimes, you know, they don't really do it as much as they should.
Because in most of the episodes, there was, like a Jan saying, Michael, you're not allowed to say stuff like that. You can't just out them like that. You can't make those comments. But then everybody else is just like, why is our boss so stupid?
Yeah.
Mm. Mm. And I guess at that point we should start with the questions with what is it like?
But yeah, we were kind of answering the first one already. The main concepts and the theories and stuff.
Usually you started with saying which one, so my brain didn't register.
It's okay.
I'm running very, very slow right now.
So sorry, it's been a busy week for everyone.
Yeah, no, like I said, I got up like 10 minutes ago.
So Kyle, Reagan, anything else to add to the so what?
I was trying to think. I don't really know. This article definitely is different than most of our other ones, how we're supposed to relate it to how the episodes, and I feel like it kind of does it for us. That makes sense.
Like what you're basically saying is like the article basically writes its own answers at that point.
Yeah, like we, instead of walking in blind, we get to walk in already with a good idea of what we're going to be looking at or looking for in the episodes, instead of trying to blindly figure it out ourselves.
Yeah, the answer is given to you instead of having to read between the lines.
And I definitely think it, like hipster racism, like definitely ties in. Like I think it says right here, hipster racism reinforces the colorblind values. Yeah, I think so too. And they say, I have written down my notes that they talked about the same episode. They talked about that Office episode like for most of it, I think. But I think it's because Michael really just shows how there's like a normalization of hipster racism, and he basically equates gay people to people who are developmentally delayed, is what they said in the article. And that's like obviously not okay, but like you can show how it doesn't like register in his brain that
they're just regular people too, you know, and he just like the colorblind racism, like he's treating people different based on their sexual orientation.
I think that kind of leads us into the so what, you know, why this concept is important as society. And I mean, for that, the color blind or the hipster racism definitely makes a lot of sense, because it's so important, because as a lot of other things, like people just don't point out the fact that it's wrong and the fact that it shouldn't be done, and then they see shows like The Office and make jokes that they shouldn't make and comments that they shouldn't make, and you know, treat people the way they shouldn't because, oh no, it's funny, I'm just joking. You're obviously not joking. If you were joking, I'd be laughing.
Mm.
I think they kind of use comedy to fall back on like what they say, or if somebody doesn't like what they say and they realize it, that, oh, you might not share the same belief as me, they're like, oh, I was just joking. Like they used it kind of as like a scapegoat, I think, or that's how I take it.
Literally all the time. Not me, I'm saying like other people do it. I see other people do it all the time.
Mm-hmm. The only thing I think about it being important is, if I remember correctly, this kind of racism is a lot more modern than some of the others in terms of origination. I don't know, man. I cannot make a thought right now.
Also with what you said, Faith, like how they kind of just like say like, oh, I didn't really mean it or whatever, stuff like that after they say it. I'm looking at my quotes from the Gay Witch Hunt episode, and Michael, like he'll say things like that are very offensive and rude to like everyone, and then he'll be like oh, I didn't realize that Oscar was gay. Like he says like really offensive things and then says like, oh, if I knew he was, I wouldn't have said that, which doesn't really make it any better. And then he's like, and he tries to like overcompensate for that after, and he's like, well, gay pride, right? Gay pride parade. It's not, and he's like, it's not like gay shame festival, which was very like, you're only saying this to try and get out of that situation. Like he doesn't really, you know, believe in what he's saying. He kind of just says it so that people will stop like judging him, I guess.
Yeah. And the problem with a lot of this comedy is it's supposed to be satirical. Did you guys ever have to read? Okay, there was this book that I had to read for 10th grade honors English called by Kurt Vonnegut. It was called The Cat's Cradle. No? Okay. So it wasn't a comedy piece, but it was a satire. And, you know, satire, they make a satirical comedy, especially makes fun of something in order to bring to light that it's a problem. So there in the book, I mean, granted it was like 3 years ago, so I don't remember exactly, especially because we didn't understand what a satire even was at the time. My teacher's like, figure it out. Well, now that I know what a satire is, it makes a lot more sense. But satire, they were making fun of, well, not making fun, but like kind of like the entire book was like this huge joke about what's wrong with people to comment on society. And that's what a lot of these comedy shows are doing. They're making fun of people to show what's wrong in society, but it's never pointed out that it's satirical. Half of the population of America doesn't even know what satire is. So their point doesn't come across. Instead of, no, this isn't funny, we're making fun of it to show that it's not funny, it comes across as, this is funny, we're making fun of it to show that it is funny. And that's the point that a lot of people are missing. So to lead us into the now what, again, as I say every week, and I feel like a broken record, but if people were educated on the issues, if more people understood satire and knew what satire was and were taught satire and were taught these shows aren't funny, these shows are pointing out that there's a problem with you and you and you and the person sitting next to you on the bus and that guy that's laughing at the horribly racist joke. Like, these things aren't actually funny. They're only funny in the sense that we learned earlier in the school year. Like, you laugh because it's so absurd and awkward that you don't know how to contemplate it.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And like, oh wait, Reagan, are you talking? Okay.
You can go.
Okay. Yeah, I was just gonna say like that's a really good point, because I think the whole point of these, like you said, Faith, like the whole point of these comedy episodes of like satire is to like show that it's wrong. And the only way people can even get what these episodes are saying are if they understand the basics of what really satire is, and like the whole point behind doing all of it, because it's so like strategically thought out, you know. Okay, Reagan, you can go. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say I fully agree with that point. How, Faith, you're saying how it's not supposed to be funny. It's supposed to show that there's something wrong. I don't know.
Does anyone have anything else to add?
I was just about to ask the same
No,
thing.
not really.
Yeah, I think we kind of covered that part of it.
This week was easier because the reading already covered so much of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we kind of started talking about the now what, but kind of like every other unit, it's mostly just being aware and being educated from an earlier age, I think, because like we're kind of all like not just learning about it now, but we kind of are becoming more aware of what everything in society really is talking about and really means, and everything that people are doing nowadays. Like we kind of are all understanding it more now, but if we understood it when we were like younger and growing up, we could have gotten so much more knowledge and understanding of everything around us. So I think really it just comes to like education and awareness at an earlier age.
Like, I was trying to explain to my friend Kenneth one day when I was driving him home from work. You don't have to understand or agree with someone to sympathize with them. So I think that especially ties into this week's discussion. Like, you don't have to understand why someone is gay. You don't have to like be gay. You don't have to agree with them. You can say, you know what? I personally, like if you're a Catholic, you can be like, I think that that would send you to hell, but I also won't stop you from doing it. Like, but there's a lot of people in this world that say, no, I'm Christian, no, I'm Catholic, no, I'm Muslim, no, I'm Syrian Orthodox, whatever it may be, and it's against my religion, so you can't do it. And like, if there was less of that, if people were really more understanding, I mean, how many times in the Bible does it say, love one another and treat everyone equally, and yet there's so much like hate? I mean, like with the KKK in the whatever it was, like 60s or whatever, and or 40s, I don't remember history. And there was, the discrimination based on race using the Bible. Now, that's not as prominent. It's discrimination based on sexuality and sexual orientation using these religious texts. That's, and it's what's the quote? They use one main quote, which is, man should not lay with another boy. But in like before it was translated 10 times over to English, many people believe that it was interpreted as man should not lay with other men, saying that or men should not lay with a boy, saying that pedophilia is a sin, not man should not lay with another man, saying that homosexuality is a sin. Because as we learned in the one of the lectures, it wasn't even necessarily like a concept. Like, there wasn't even really a word for it until like the late 1800s. So some, people, 3,000 years ago were saying, oh, never do this, when it technically wasn't like considered a thing back then. It all depends on your point of view, and some people need to have a more open-minded point of view.
I didn't realize that. That's pretty interesting to know, Faith. But
I knew the Bible contradicted itself. I didn't know that it was translated a ton before it came over to English. I forgot that that was like a thing.
Yeah, it was so I have fairly religious grandparents. I myself am not the most religious person, but also I have a Baptist preacher uncle on Facebook who is constantly arguing with my dad on things. And while I don't follow my uncle, my dad then shares the stories with me afterwards. And they're fairly entertaining, but there was one very big fight where my dad posted some meme, and homosexuality was some part of it. I don't even remember what it was, but my uncle started ranting about how horrible it was and sinful and blah blah blah. And like, probably my longest lasting friend, his name is Nate, he came out to his family a few years ago, came out to me last year. Like, I completely support him. I've literally known Nate since he was born. He's like 6 months younger than me. We've been best friends forever. Like, we got married when we were 3. Like, there's no way that I would tell Nate, no, that's wrong. You can't do that. Why would you ever want to do that? Do you want to go to hell? But, my uncle's making these comments, and he was debating with Nate's father, who also follows my dad on Facebook. And, he was saying, like, the Bible says men should not lay with men. And then Nate's father was like, actually, depends on how you translate it, because some people say men should not lay with boys. And then it turned into this huge thing. But that's, it really brought to light, because the Bible was originally transcribed in what, Aramaic, Hebrew, and Greek, I believe. And then, people brought it back and forth through the language, sifter or whatever. And there's not direct translations for Aramaic. You have to translate Aramaic into Arabic and then into English, because there's, such a lack of direct translation from one to the other. So there is a lot lost in the Bible, even translating it from the Old English into regular English. And a lot of these, racial discriminations, sexual orientation discriminations stem from the religious people saying, this is wrong, this is against my religion. But if an ancient Greek person read it, 1,000 years ago, then they might have understood something completely different.
I just think also for the so what, or what society needs to do now, I think just society as a whole, I think, needs to stop putting their beliefs on others, if that makes sense. Like how you were saying with your uncle, he might
Preach.
believe one thing on to somebody else's, or say you're not right because, or we don't share the same beliefs, so you're not right, or you're less knowledge, or whatever. I just think that as is another part of the so, or the so what, or the so now.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I think mainly it's just people need to respect others' opinions, like you said, Reagan. And like, I think one of the videos, it was a really good one that explained like all of the different like LGBT, like all that stuff. It explained like every single one, and it was really thorough and everything. But she basically just said, just accept other people's opinions and beliefs, and whatever they choose to do or be, that is their choice. And we really just have to accept that and just respect them.
Honestly, I wish classes like this one and like anthropology classes were like required in high school. And because, people would hate being forced to take them, but like, they're also very eye-opening, and they kind of show you what the rest of the world is living, and that bit of like open-mindedness. And if people were even like because most people aren't introduced to that, like if people were even introduced to it, then maybe there'd be that tiny little tinge of guilt, like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be treating people like this. And then eventually they go on and learn more on their own, and then people become less ignorant to the subject.
Yeah, I agree. I think this class is like actually very eye-opening, and I think it would help a lot of people understand things.
Agree.
Kyle, you want to add anything?
Okay.
I, No thoughts, head empty.
Okay. I think that's it then.
Yeah.
I guess so. And
All right, I think we're good.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I talked a lot today, so sorry, person grading this. I know we're supposed to be equal. I just had a lot to say.
well, I mean, it helped with people like me because, like I said, I I had nothing today, so
Alrighty.
oh well.
Everybody good? Stop the recording?
Yeah.